Alright. Hopefully everything's streaming okay. I think so. Yes, it is. It is another beautiful day in live YouTube land. Is anybody going to arrive? Yes, they are. Hey, Kairos. Hi, Lucinda. Hey, John. Welcome to a pretty much on time live stream. Hey, Keith. Moonring. Power Rider. I see you worked out the times okay, Moonring. I'm glad to hear. Thanks for asking me what time it would be, by the way. I'm very slack at doing that sort of thing. Like letting people know. I just assume that people can read my mind. A bit of cheese this morning. Brooke, nice to see you. Ah, no problem. Yes, podcast. Today we shall talk of that and many other things. Let there be cheese. Thank you for your excellent suggestion about the live stream, about the podcast, Kickcast 2. Much appreciated. Greetings from the always low-key weird Langley, Virginia. Langley, that's where they train FBI agents, isn't it? Hey, Keith. Bright Glory. Robert, I'm doing well, thank you. Heading into summer. We hit daylight savings in about 5 days' time. Hit that like button prematurely if you feel the urge to twitch and hit a button. Home of American Dad, right? Langley, Virginia, where everyone's armed. Palra, you were just shilling Frozen Far to Gonzo. Oh yeah, Frozen Far's doing well. You are early scorched. Nice to see you. How would I run a Spelljammer horror adventure in Ravenloft? Maybe a ship is sucked into the space of the Dark Powers world and encounter something like xenomorphs? Or perhaps you discover what the Dark Powers are and you're actually captives on board a ship which runs on your life energy. So your brain is actually in a jar. And your mission in the game is to fool Ravenloft, which is actually a computer program, into reintegrating your brain with your body, so you can escape. So you have to trick the game itself, which is an illusion, so everything's working against you, and you die over and over again in the dream, only to wake up again back in the dream because your brain is still in a jar. But you only discover this as you progress and you get glimpses of reality. It's fall in New England. New England, that's like Boston? Yeah, an extra hour for the rest of 2020. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we should just skip it this year. Oh yeah, we absolutely do daylight savings because we're so far on the other side of on the planet, close to the poles, that our days during summer are much longer than our nights. Not to the extent where the day lasts 24 hours or anything, but yeah, there's quite a gap in the summer and winter day length. So it actually makes a lot of physical sense for us. You just saw a guy step out of a Land Cruiser with a mini crossbow sidearm. That's so cool. Do you guys know of any simplistic dungeon games played with dungeon tiles? Sometimes I want to play something simple. Castle Raven. Well, there's Curse of Strahd. There's these board games that you play, and basically it lays tile by tile, and it's you versus the game. So you can actually play it solo or with a group. They're expensive, but they've got good miniatures in them, so they're really actually quite good value for money. Yeah. If I can remember later on, I might link it in the doobly-doo down below. You'd absolutely DM them. Yeah. Somebody should play a game like that. That would be cool. I would watch that. Have I got a new favourite monster from the new book? I've had a cursory glance, but I've got to say that they knocked the Tomb Tappers out of the park. Like, the artwork for the Tomb Tappers is so much better than it used to be. Like, whoa. Yeah, Tomb Tappers are terrifying. But I've, as I say, I've only really glanced at it. So far, I'm quite liking it. Like, I never really thought it was going to be like. There's a lot of people online who are talking about Rime of the Frost Maiden being, not what it was advertised, but that's not actually true. If you watch all of the streams and stuff and how they were delving into the content and stuff, there was quite a lot of slapstick stuff that they were talking about in there. And I don't think they realize that when you play in a game which is in a frozen environment, the environment itself is trying to kill you. Like, if you screw up a little bit, the ice and stuff is gonna kill you. So it is terrifying being in an Arctic environment where the further you go into it, the more remote you are from warmth and hearth and home, the more terrible nature can be. So if you're injured and disabled or whatever, you can die. Hail from the deep woods of Tennessee. Hello. I've got a video on red caps, actually, if you want to go and check that out, Mr. Rodriguez. Oh, is that what they call the Heroscape games? Yeah, they're good fun. The Man with the Missing Brain. That's a good title for it. You saw a Miskatonic University tag on the back of a vehicle too. Fits. Daylight savings and magnets are things I'll never understand even if it's beaten into me. Yeah, magnets are weird. Let's face it. Try and explain magnets to a 5-year-old and it's magic. Just say it's magic. They're magic stones. Also, is Oral dead now? No. Only a god can kill a god. Just remember that one. Hey, thanks, Comic Nut. It's my birthday. Thanks for the stream. Are you going to remake the vampire video? Yes. Although I quite like the vampire video, I had fun making that one. I think I will redo it. Yeah, it's got some weird artwork in that one. Thanks, Chad. My version of the Green Dragon. Okay. In Heroscape, orcs are blue-skinned, caveman-cultured dinosaur riders. Great video this week, by the way. Thank you. I have lots of devils coming up. So it's going to be Devil Week here at the Mighty Glue Stick. We're going full evil. So we've got Barb Devil, Spine Devil, Ice Devil, the Frost Giants getting a look in, and Black Dragons is my upcoming list of things to do. So, yeah. I'm going to be talking a lot about, with the Barb Devil and the Spine Devil and the Ice Devil, devil ecology, essentially. There's some really good information that you can access on like the D&D wiki for Forgotten Realms that has all of the information from all the different source books and stuff that talk about the Nine Hells. Like, I get questions a lot about, can a Cambion and a Tiefling have children, and then what is it? Or can a devil and an angel have babies and stuff? Like, a lot of people ask me reproduction questions about these supernatural beings. And the thing to remember is that devils are dead. They're dead, okay? So they're not biological entities like they were when they were alive. The lion's share of devils these days come from souls that have been, so they're petitioners who have become naturalized to an outer plane, a plane of concepts and dreams and faith. So you got to remember that it's a realm where divine stuff happens, where belief matters. So they don't conform to the same biological laws, but they do conform to a lot of biological laws. And as far as reproduction and food goes with devils, it's a hobby. It's not a necessity. They have sex because they're bored. They have a gender because they want to. They eat because they enjoy it. They don't need to eat. Yeah, nasty fun times, Kick-Ass Duke. It's true. It's true. What use do magnets play in D&D? Well, they're lodestones. But lodestones are kind of different as well, because they're like, I mean, magnets have pretty much the same uses in D&D as they have elsewhere. There are traps and stuff where your knight in the shining armor can be stuck to a wall by a super powerful magnet. But not a lot, really. Yeah, only a god can kill another god unless enough elves get together. Yeah, that's true. You could say that enough elves make a god, really. Oh yeah, my version of the lore of yeah. I get you, Chad. Sorry. Would an advanced culture nuking the Nine Hells or Abyss help kill off mass amounts of fiends? Nuclear weapons wouldn't actually have much effect against the Nine Hells because they're all immune to fire and radiation. So they would just be like boomf, an impact wave, which would cause a bit of damage, but the actual fire and radiation and stuff would only cause problems for people who weren't naturally immune to fire like they were. Let's hope you remember to include the 0 edition image of the hippogriff in your remake. Possibly? What happens to the body of a devil or demon when they die in the material plane? Demons in particular, they break down into goop, and then the energy of the demon percolates through the prime material plane, and it's really hard to get rid of. So you pretty much have to like dig up all the soil and walls and stuff that this thing touched and send it back to the abyss. It's like the touch of the far realm a little bit. With devils, though, I think they do actually leave behind a body. I got to double check that. They don't dissolve into ichor, as far as I know. Yeah. But they do, their body goes back, their soul goes back to the Nine Hells, where it's reincarnated as a Nuparibo, which is then busted down instantaneously to a Lemure. Sometimes, if they've been bad and they're being demoted, but usually it'll be reincarnated as a Nuparibo, and then it will be transformed into one of the lesser devils straight away. They don't get busted back to a Lemure all the time. Which is because of the interesting thing about Bartor is that they've taken over an external realm, right? So they've taken over the Bartorians' place in the Nine Hells. So they're not supposed to be there. So they've engineered it so that the Nuparibos get turned into the Bartorians. The Bartorians get turned into the devils, the Bartizu. It's complicated. It's like imagine there was a colony of fruit flies that that were going about their business, and then this infectious parasite came in and transformed the bodies like a fungus. That's what the devils do. It's a bad analogy, but whatever. Christopher, no. Would a deep Mascari tiefling be different from a regular human tiefling? No, not really. No. There's enough similarities with humans and Deepa Mascari that they would not be too different, because the tiefling kind of overwrites all of that, like their skin color, and they can see in the dark anyway and stuff like that. So, speaking of devils, do you maybe think that the Nine Hells are maybe a little too harsh? Like, shouldn't people still be able to survive there so that parties have something to interact with? Yeah, they do for the most part. I mean, it's a desolate wasteland. Like, it's the worst Mad Max Fury Road situation that you could find yourself in. Hell's supposed to be really bad. Like, I would follow you to hell, being like, I would go into certain death with you. Would be, if you're going to the Nine Hells, it's not a day trip. What's the best playable race and why is it tiefling? Pfft. Gnomes, man. Somebody always asking me about the shirt. This is from Lunified. So if you want to go and buy this shirt, you can go to Lunified. Or if you want to buy my shirt, there's a link pinned to the top of the chat, you may see. It's a feature of the new live stream studio, which I was not aware of. Turns out the live stream studio for YouTube is actually pretty good, gotta say. And just a reminder to everybody, this is a monetized live stream. If you wanna, in this day and age. A lot of conflicting information about the lower planes, huh? Well, there's a lot of stuff which has been simplified and left out because it's largely unnecessary to know what the ancient history of the Nine Hells is. And most of this sort of stuff goes on in the background. You don't really need to know or see what's going on. But people will ask questions like, why don't, like, if when you arrive on the Nine Hells you get turned into a lemure or a larvae that turns into a Nuparibo, like, what are these Nuparibos? Why do they get instantly turned into a lemure, for instance? What's going on here? What happens to a Nuparibo if you just leave it be? First live stream, Avery. Nice to see you. Yeah, the gnome mind flayer in the new book is weird. Yeah. Lunified, yeah. I'm not sure if that's the spelling of it, but if you Google it, you'll find it. Good morning, Darkstrider. Every time I'm working is when you're live. Keep up the great work, and I'll catch this when it's a vid. Thanks, Battlestar. Yeah, they would be very pissed that their buildings get destroyed if you nuke their city, Kick-Ass Duke. Particularly like the city of Dis, for instance. They're always breaking it down and remodeling it and rebuilding it. It's in a constant state of work. Monetized, yes, monetized, Jimmy Styles. Thank you very much. Monetized. The weather today is hot, but springtime, so it's changeable. Like, there was a little bit of wind yesterday, but the sun is starting to come out, and it's going to be an absolutely scorching summer here in New Zealand. Yeah, they really are bowing in the middle from so many books. Yeah, it's quite a weight of wood turned into paper and stuff back there. These shelves, by the way, are rated for 50 kilos, so it gives you some idea of how much all these game books weigh. But yeah. And I'm getting more and more, by the way. So this is the Discworld role-playing game, and I had an idea that I've always found the Outlands underneath Sigil, like down the bottom of the spire, to be kind of boring. And I thought, what if the Outlands was actually like Discworld, like Sigil, was at the top of Cori Celesti, and instead of there being gods in the middle, there was the real Mani, and the rest of the Outlands was actually Discworld. How crazy would that be, right? So Discworld is like the center of the universe, but it's actually on the back of 4 giant elephants, which is on the back of a giant space turtle flying through the outer planes, through the phlogiston. Anyway, yeah, so this game book uses the GURPS system, the Generic Universal Role-Playing System. And GURPS has been around as long as everything. Like, it's very old. And I've never really learnt the GURPS system or played in a GURPS game, which is a stunning thing considering it's so common. But it's really, really easy. GURPS just uses D6 six-sided dice. So you can play it anywhere that you find like a board game or some you can carve six-sided dice out of cheese. Whoa! Thanks, Duke. Thanks, Mage Knight New Age. Is there any way to turn a devil or demon into a celestial? Is that sort of corruption a one-way thing? I don't think so. I think you can actually turn them back into an angel again. I think there's always a path for redemption, because that's a very common storyline in Taoist mythology and things, like the redemption of a devil. And there's a time where they're like, in 4th edition, they dabbled with it between the Deva and the Rakshasa, for instance, where the one is the other sort of thing. Like, what happens to a divine soul when it's trapped on the prime-material plane and it has to reincarnate? You can't be a good being and then turn evil and stay in the same shape and form. But there's a possible path to redemption. So if they can redeem themselves, then why can't other Celestials? But the thing is, it's not just I do good deeds until I become good. It's I become good, like to their core. Their identity is no longer devil. They break all ties, all bonds, all obligations, all legal things that can drag them back to the Nine Hells, and it's an extremely hard thing to do. But they need to become a new faith, like a new soul. So it's incredibly hard. It's a lot easier to fall than to rise. Let's put it that way. You keep forgetting about these $1 ones I get for being a YouTube rep, man. Yeah, exactly. Make use of it, man. Robert Wilson, thank you. I see your Greed Dragon, however I missed the hipster demi-lich with the Vincent Price laughter. Yes, where is he? He's round the other side. Thanks, Autistic Entrepreneur. Meep. Meep. Am I your Dr. Bunsen honeydew? Are you my beaker? That is so cool. I'm going to get myself a beaker. Yes, the Nine Hells is older than Faerun. It's older than the Forgotten Realms, that's for sure. Like, multiple planes multiple different world settings connect to the Nine Hells. So you can travel to the Nine Hells back to any world within the prime material plane. So it's a way to travel. It's a way of interstellar travel. You can bounce from an outer plane and back to the prime material world to a different world. That's one of the things I explore with the Green Path in the Feywild. You can travel from one world to the other through the Feywild. What's really interesting, too, is that people will travel through the Feywild and forget that they were in the Feywild. They'll have a vague recollection of the Feywild, but not know what happened. So they'll literally step into the Feywild, forget they were there, and wake up on another world, and not know how they got there. Thanks, Barrider. Thanks, James. If you were tasked with teleporting in a mercenary force for a 2-day battle with a budget of 100,000 gold pieces, what type would you choose? Dragonborn. Dragonborn and Warforged, probably. Yep. Yeah. I think, I really love the Discworld, and I think porting it into D&D is perfect. Why not? Hey TJ, I've seen your. I've been watching you posting your artwork on Twitter. It's really good. That fishing one was cute. What do I think of the Outlands border style? Not a huge fan. Not a huge fan. I like the idea of connections to the outer planes not being so clear cut. Like you have to find them and you can shift them around. Having the border towns there is like the players can kind of force your hand as a DM and go there even if you don't want them to. I mean, I know you can throw obstacles in their way, but it's possible for players to railroad the game as well. No, I haven't really delved too much, Scorch, into the factions of the Forgotten Realms. I should. I've talked a little about, the agents of Thay, the Red Wizards, but I haven't really talked about the Zentarum. They are important, and they factor a lot in different games, particularly up in the far north. Yeah, the Greed Dragon. This is the Greed Dragon because he's got loot down below here. He's got a hoard of coins and stuff. Can we get a sneak peek at something from the Frozen Far book? What would you like to see, Pal Rider? I don't actually have a physical copy of the book. I've just got it unlocked on D&D Beyond. Granny Weatherwax bopping some fool mind flayer over the head with a frying pan. Can't be having any of that. Yeah, true. Yeah, you arrive on the Outlands. And it's like, oh, wow, this is interesting. As the dawn rises and you see the light travelling across the land, it's like, what? The ambient magic field. And then you see a witch flying by on a broomstick, muttering about her corns, her bunions. I would love to have an animated sidekick, it's true. I've heard that at least succubi can redeem themselves. It involves 7 acts of kindness for every act of evil they have done. Yeah, that's a lot. Weatherwax would take over the colony, probably. Right, yeah, Zariel's spark of her original divine essence in her sword. When the Celestials invaded the lower planes, did the forces of neutrality get involved in that conflict? I don't think the forces of neutrality have a lot to do in the outer planes. It's mainly the neutrality of the prime material plane that the Rilmani are interested in. But they're the bureaucrats of the multiverse. They're incredibly powerful, actually. They can just sort of arrive and reset things. It would mean that the Rilmani could have travelled en masse, because they travel when there's an unbalance of something. Like when a celestial being travels to the prime material plane, then they can travel with them, sort of low key, out of sight, off camera. They'll arrive when the destabilizing factor arrives, and they'll leave when the destabilizing factor leaves. Hey, welcome to Bronze Dragon, Andrew. Yeah, that's true, Pal Rider. They have messed with the outer planes so often, just get crazy with it. Can a mortal become a demon lord or archdevil? How would that work? At that point, you would no longer have your mortal form. No. You'd be something else entirely. Demons, no, you can't be a demon lord. You could possibly be an archdevil of some sort, but you would have to be born into their hierarchy. You couldn't be an outsider. Because then essentially you'd just be a god. Drinking in the Fae, that sounds like a good band name. I played a Discworld campaign in 4E, but I didn't like it. Oh, okay. Exits are Chittle Mind Flayers. Yeah, that would work. They've got about the right body mass. They've got enough brain tissue. That's a kind of terrifying idea. Would they be completely squiddy? Like, would they be Mind Flayer octopi, essentially? Yes, you're very active, TJ, considering you call yourself retired. Retiring from artwork. Pwah. It's like retiring from breathing. How the factions are employed in D&D campaigns, I'm not so impressed though. Well, you can kind of ignore them. Like, you can just play D&D without involving the factions at all. It's your game. You don't have to use any of the lore. You can just pick and choose. That's the beauty of it. That's why there's so much. What kind of games would dwarves play? I have a dwarf with a game set proficiency and I'm wondering what would be appropriate. King's Table. They play King's Table. So you've got a king in the middle who's trying to escape from a bunch of warriors who are trying to basically trap and kill him in the middle. It's an ancient Viking board game. King's Table. Go and look it up. Forces of neutrality, yeah, the Rilmani are the forces of neutrality, much like the Celestials are the forces of law, and the demons are the forces of chaos. The Rilmani are the forces of neutrality. I will find you the stat block for the Rilmani, Robert Wilson. They got the last time they were highlighted was in 4th edition. Thanks, Jimmy. What are the Inevitables up to? Trying to fix the universe and messing it up at the same time. Being general hardasses. Thanks, Kyla. Hey AJ, just wanted to let you know you're awesome and my favourite monsterologist on YouTube. You're very informative and useful for making my monster more flavourful and challenging. Nice. Thank you. So the podcast, what I want to do with the podcast essentially is talk about encounter building and world building and stuff like that, how I actually play the game. So I want to go over topics which don't really do that well in my like just as a standalone sort of video because they're sort of lost in the amount of advice videos that you get from people. But D&D is just the tip of the iceberg of games that I've played. I've played all sorts of different gaming systems and stuff, and it's kind of like when you get swamped with a lot of different gaming systems, you understand what the core of a role-playing game really is, free of all the books and stuff that go with it, and all the dice mechanics and all that sort of things. Those are all sort of gimmicks to achieve what the game at its core really is, which is storytelling. So when you're making an adventure, when you're making encounters and things, these scenes that stuff takes place in, there is these elements that you need to keep moving in your mind and convey to the players around the table in a descriptive and involving way. Like, I've got a talent from years and years of working in restaurants and like a fresh food stall and stuff like that, of describing flavors to people. It's something that I sort of discovered and built muscles for over time so that I could sell food to people, essentially. Role-playing games are a lot like that with all the different senses. So if you can sell a smell or a flavor or a feeling to somebody of a room or a situation or an NPC or something like that, or get across to them in as few words as possible what the essence of that thing is and let their mind take over and build the architecture of the world in their head and maintain it, and then you just guide them along with crumbs that are leading them in the right direction. That's the essence of what a role-playing game is. All the mechanics and stuff like that is additional to it. So there was kind of like a renaissance in gaming where people realized that theatre sports type elements, just taking 1, 2, or 3 things and running with them, so Fate and Fiasco and various other gaming systems which were purely story based, very rules mechanics light storytelling games and improv type games, worked perfectly well. So a lot of people still play those, and these days you'll see a lot of the theatre element coming into live streaming. That's why they refer to their bunch of players as their cast. I was a bit triggered by this at first, and then I realised, this is just a natural logical regression where performers realise that they can actually, it's a different type of performance medium. So they're importing a lot of their jargon into it as well. Thanks, Kikastuke. Would you consider doing a video series and make a playlist of the history of Tyrol in chronological order? A watchable timeline would be very useful. I probably could do something like that. I would like to get to the Crown Wars of the Elves and do videos on those before I sort of launch into the full thing. But yeah, I can do that. I do have a video on the Rilmani. It needs to be redone though. Thanks, James. Any plans for another video on how angels and devils arrange meetings in Sigil? Yeah, that will be kind of covered as I talk about it as well. It's mainly the higher ups, so I'm going to be talking about the lesser devils to begin with. Oof, there's a bit of a jump there. King's Table is kind of like a cross between primitive chess and checkers. It's its own sort of strategy game. So the person who's playing the king has got the disadvantage. It's a tactical disadvantage on the king's side to actually win. So yeah, it's interesting that way. You don't start off even in King's Table. Dwarves would play rugby. They probably would. Planescape is pretty much always a part of my games. Pretty much. Yeah, Spelljam is just the space between worlds. It's hyperspace, essentially. Hyperspace and space. Like, you don't have to use the crystal shells of these things. Planescape can be used without the crystal shells around planetary systems, so you can have real space, but instead of the gulf between solar systems, you just use the phlogiston, and it works perfectly fine. So you can go flying off into the nothing of space, and the envelope of air around your ship will just dwindle away, and you'll die, right? Unless you've got some way of restoring things. So you can have outer, like way beyond solar system stuff. But bear in mind that the space inside those crystal shells is massive. Like, it's all the way out to Pluto, and then that distance again from Pluto to the sun before you hit the crystal shell. So it's absolutely enormous. But you don't have to use the crystal shell. Which means you could possibly just hit the phlogiston by creating a portal anywhere within wild space, within the space of a solar system. So you get a significant distance away between, like, you get the Lagrange points between the planets, for instance, where you got a gravity neutral area, and that's where you can make the crossover into the phlogiston and get out of the system. So when you become completely gravity neutral, then you can create a doorway and warp, essentially. So you could introduce creatures from Warhammer 40k, like, you know, Nurgle and all that sort of stuff from the warp of the phlogiston. You could make the phlogiston a scary place if you wanted to. I see nothing wrong with that. Thanks, Andrew. Just a thanks for answering my query. Long time listener, first time caller. Tips for making a level 20 Death Knight boss battle. I don't know. I haven't really run one of those. Minions. Use lots of minions. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about Palladium. I think it's a really good world building. Assassin AJ could pose as I totally could pose as a fishmonger. I know far too much about fish. It's true. Tressum video. Flying cats. There's not much to say about Tressum. I do talk about Tressum when I was talking about Cormyr. Whenever I mention Cormyr, I generally talk about the Tressum because they're native to Cormyr. Thanks, Kyla. Hey AJ, is there any lore or understanding on the origins of vampires in D&D? Is it like a disease with different strains or some kind of curse? Maybe you could make a video on the subject. It's one of those things where there's you can pull in all the different lore, like the jumping vampires of China, or the detached head with entrails vampires of no, Indonesia's the whole upper torso, I think. It's a winged thing with the guts hanging out. Really disgusting. And a lot of people believe those really exist. Yeah, there's lots of different types of vampires around the world, in the different cultures. In D&D, I think it's a curse, like it's a magical type supernatural curse, not a disease per se. The original edutainment. Does Tharasdun have any allies currently trying to help him escape? Yeah, there's lots of factions who are doing that sort of crazy stuff. Trying to find all the marbles, that the crystals that unlock his prison. But of course, that keeps Vecna busy. Tresemme just winged house cats. I can't imagine there's much to say. Well, we can sort of talk about what it would be like to be a winged cat, I suppose. Zombie horde stat block, nice. Thanks, Donald. Any ETA on Eladrin, such as Tulani, Gale, yeah. Also, nice Hawaiian shirt, my friend. That's not actually Hawaiian, but thank you. Yeah, so those are the Eladrin that exist close to the borders of the Celestial Planes, and also to the Feywild. So think of the Feywild as a transitory plane that exists between the mundane primaterial plane and the outer planes of thought and imagination and belief. So the Feywild is the imagination and storytelling bit of it, the dreamy bit of it, and then it goes to either the elemental planes or the outer planes. Kind of interesting that way. Like, why would it go to the inner planes, to the elemental planes? Surely it would go through the primaterial plane first. But no, that's not the way it works. Are there any modules for Netherill's time period? Yes, there are. Yes. They're old, and I don't think I have a physical copy of them at the moment. Those are the ones by Slade. How would a real Mani introduce itself to someone? It would probably not. They're very Vulcan in there, and like they're kind of emotionless in a way. The garden is going well. I need to redo the greenhouse. We've been working on it. Vecna, the janitor of the universe. Yeah, kind of a little bit. Thanks, Rational Redneck. Has anyone ever seen Mordenkainen and AJ in the same place? Does anyone else find that they're suspicious? Find that suspicious? Yeah, maybe, possibly, no. Tresemme are also smart and super useful familiars. Yeah, they really do make good animal companions. Yeah, monotone is out. Yeah, Adrianeth, exactly. The real Mani are... Yeah, the real Mani live in the Spire, but they do travel on occasion to the primaterial plane when other beings from the outer planes travel to the primaterial plane when they're not supposed to, sort of thing. So the real Mani keep tabs on stuff. They're like the Men in Black, except they're the men in silver. They're silvery skinned. There's different types of real Mani, by the way. So they've got a kind of a caste society where everything's rigidly sort of put. They've got jobs to do, and their physical form matches their officiousness. So they're like a boring version of the Nine Hells and a boring version of the Order of Celestia. So they come from an old branch of creation before before it was good and evil, it was law versus chaos, and the Realmani are very lawful. So they're neutral, true neutral, and they appear very lawful because they just go about their business, sort of thing. So they've got a way of doing things, but they don't like enforce that on other people. They enforce the status quo. Greetings, AJ. Thanks, Malphazar. Have some cheese on me, can't stay. Have to take a doggo that got lost on an adventure to find her owners. Stay safe. Oh, nice. You're returning her to the owners. Oh, that's good. Good on you, man. Was Tharizdun responsible for the Oberth universe giving into entropy and dying, or at least their version of the Tharizdun? No. They were responsible for it. So what happened is they used magic to such an extent, psychic stuff and magic, that they essentially destabilized their universe. So their entire universe became completely manipulated by them, much like if you imagine that the prime material world was completely invaded by elementals, and the elementals took over all matter, and then it became their bodies, and they moved around and destroyed everything. So it just became like the planet literally split open as different elementals were pulling themselves free. That's what happened to their universe. So that was not just physical matter, that was the ether itself. So they became super psychic entities, and matter just became a tool for them. So they lost their physical forms, and it became a nightmare dimension where nothing made sense anymore. Do the Realmani have a neutral version of the Book of Exalted Deeds or Vile Darkness? Not that I know of. Possibly. Couldn't they just show up as a ghost? Yeah, I suppose so. What would a dwarf keep as a pet? I don't know that they actually do keep pets. I know that they like mountain goats and boars. So possibly a boar? Like a little pig? Hard to say. They don't generally, as a rule, keep pets. They keep animals for a reason. They're very practical. Perhaps the Oberth were the heroes of the prior universe. Yeah, because everything was topsy-turvy in their universe, so bad was good, sort of thing. What happens to fiends that are redeemed? It's probably so rare that it would be an individual case for each one, Aiden. Oof. Chat's whipping by. Do dragons find dwarves to be good pets? They can, yeah. This is like the only place I get to talk geeky. Oh, Epic Thulu. Well, I'm glad I can be your geeky home away from home. Do you think the Imascari had Megan? Yes, I think they probably do. The deep Imascari, later Imascari, not the ancient ones. What is the current state of Mithranor? I'll have to look that up for you, Pale Rider. It's on my list of things to do. It's been warred over so long that Mithranor is kind of a... It's got a lot of battles echoing from the stones. The Book of No Strong Feelings. Book of Meh. Do I have any thoughts on how the ancient brethren might fit into the current D&D multiverse? No, the original mess. I'm not familiar. Pet gnomes. Yeah, it could be. Pathfinder has psychic magic, but there's psionics. What's the difference? Are they the same or different? In 5th edition, they're kind of the same. Giant moss-eating bearded devils. Beetles. Nice. A dwarf's got a pet rock. Yeah, could be. Yeah, like a little sentient crystal cluster, like a geode with a rudimentary intelligence. It's got a little bit of phase rest energy in there. For some reason, I can't join the channel. It keeps saying cancelled. Any thoughts? I don't know, Joshua. That is weird. I mean, it's clearly working for other people, so I don't know. Maybe turn your computer off and on again. Kick-Ass Duke, thank you. My favourite level to start PCs in games is 3rd. In the fight between Grast, Orcus, and Demogorgon, who will win the fight to be crowned King of the Abyss? Demogorgon. It's already been settled. The neutral counterpart to the Book of Vile Deeds is the Book of Exalted Deeds, is the Book of Fate. It's only... Oh, yeah. Right, there you go. Thanks, linguistically oversight. Yeah, it's the Book of Fate. Of course. What if someone from an inner plane found a portal to Sigil or the Infinite Staircase, went there and later returned, or used it to go to another inner plane or crystal sphere? Yeah. Can totally happen, Silver Radio. The Feywild version of the Underdark is the Feydark, which is kind of like the Underdark, full of fungus and living unseelie creatures. That's what the Feydark is like. It's like the Underdark full of fungus and life and stuff, and the unseelie Fey. And of course, Fomorians. That's the realm that Fomorians rule. So hags and Fomorians have demi-realms and castles in this underground cavern network of fungus forests. Did the Emascari survive the 1400s? Yes, they did. What character am I planning on making for Baldur's Gate 3? Ooh, I don't know. Probably a Gith. Yeah, the Tomb Tappers are hardcore. The Blind Builder, I agree. Hey, Sonda. Sonda. Are Shades extinct? No, I think the Shades are still around. Nothing's really gone unless you want it gone. What plant-based player character would have the easiest time in a city-based campaign? I've got to say Warforged, because they're kind of like mechanical cyber trees. Oh, that's tricky. Plant-based. None of them really. They're all pretty much out of sorts in a city. Yeah, no, I'm drawing a blank there. Thanks, Robert. After rewatching the Amaska video, I found myself re-examining Tiamat's habit of giving humans more regards than usual for a non-dragon race. Yeah, humans are interesting because they're so corruptible and they're so power hungry. So there's a little bit of the draconic in humans. Their lust for power and wealth. Like, when you think about it, the dragons and the elves... Well, the dragons ruled over the elven kingdoms and the dragons ruled over human kingdoms. And the humans kind of were okay with it and the elves were not. Oop, I'm missing out stuff. Major Knight, thank you. Any info on non-standard mimics, ones other than chests? One of the guys in our group got a tiny sized mimic in-game that he feeds jerky. Yeah, sure. So you can have like little baby mimics that like look like apples and stuff. I quite like those. So it's an apple that takes a chunk out of you. And in Monsters of the Nentha Vale, there was a tower sized mimic that had an ecosystem of these weird red ravens that lived around it. So yeah, these are legendary mimics that form a part of the landscape sort of thing. So they quite often look like buildings and stuff, and they can have other mimics living inside them. Like, I like the idea of a wizard who's actually a doppelganger, and he's a high-ranking doppelganger in their own society, and he's kind of like he takes on different personas. So one day he's the wizard, the next day he's the servant, the next day he's like a stable master or something like that. And he lives in a tower which is a giant mimic, and the tower can actually move around like Baba Yaga's hut. It can snake its way through, or burrow into the ground like a purple worm and arrive somewhere else. Like in Krull, where they're searching for the Black Fortress, for instance, the wizard's tower moves because it's actually alive. I like that idea. Jonathan Harris, thank you. AJ, I'm just trying to make a wizard subclass based off of Pathfinder's Alchemist, but he can splice monsters together and use mutagens to boost stats, but at any cost. Any ideas to improve this? If you can, get a look at the BioE system from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What was the thing that I saw recently where you changed the size of a creature and it gave different points? Oh, that's GURPS. I would really highly recommend people pick up the Arcana of the Ancients. I think this is possibly one of the best supplements that we've seen this year so far. Yeah, it's solidly packed with very useful high technology stuff that you can include in your game, including a lot of mutated and weirdly augmented creatures. Baug, the two-legged pseudo-primates, have prominent teeth, forearms, 2 organic, 2 metallic, and large mechanical sockets on their backs. So these are mutated creatures that are adapted to have cybernetic stuff attached to them. So, cragworm. Krith. Lots of really cool stuff. Look at that. Plus, technology. Cybernetics. Iron flesh. Lots of charts and tables and stuff. Really well put together book. Highly recommend you pick that up for that sort of reason. You can do a lot of things with your CR level of your creature. So you've got, with your CR, you've got a range of statistical similarities between all the different CR creatures. You've got a range of things that you can play around with. Their size is not that important. Like, one thing you can do is boost their size and reduce their intelligence or something, or stuff like that. And obviously their agility is going to go down a little bit too with their size. Yo dog, I put a mimic inside your mimic. Yeah, exactly. Brothers, get the flamers. The heavy flamers. In the Nine Hells, would a mid-level... Thanks, Lane. Mid-level devil be able to relax and have a good time at all? Like, go to some really screwed up gore show at a tavern. Yeah, they do have entertainment venues, for sure. Torture and, humiliation of new arrivals and things like that is certainly their form of entertainment. They are evil, after all. But it's so easy for them to get busted down in rank that, when you get up to the barbed devil, for instance, which is the highest rank of the lesser devils, they're twitchy, like they're super focused on their job because they're absolutely paranoid that they're going to get busted down a rank again. They're finally at the point where they're so close to becoming a greater devil. They are hyper focused on their work, so they're perfect for guarding locations and stuff like that because they never waver from their duty, like ever. And they're hyper vigilant and ready to make sure that they don't screw up at all. Meanwhile, of course, they're busting down every devil below them. So yeah, the barb devils are like the they're great in that regard. So it gives you a good insight into their attitude. It's like mid-level, like a spine devil. They might be like, meh. Occasionally they'll sort of kick back if they get a chance, but otherwise they're always trying to progress up the ranks. They're always trying to go, because the further up the ranks they go, the more they can get the satisfaction of kicking somebody down below them, and yeah, the less people they have to answer to and who can kick them from above. So that's their, the higher up they get, the more relaxation they get. But in the lower ranks, it's not that easy. When you get your imps and things like that, they're getting kicked by so many people that they're just looking for a port in the storm, essentially. A perch, Howl's Munching Castle, I like it. Thanks, Zalberius. I haven't heard of Dragon's Dogma anime on Netflix yet. Are we going to get a series of videos on the elder evils of the Far Realm? Possibly. I do like having the Far Realm less sort of codified. Like, I like the idea that anything goes in the Far Realm. It's a whole lot of different universes that are smooched up together. Each one of them as twisted as the last, sort of thing. Like, they're the non-compatible universes, the planes of existence where human life can't work. So if you arrive there, then it's gonna start messing you up. Like, every thought becomes reality is one of those non-livable parallel dimensions where, like, magic is so turned up that every thought you have tries to become manifested. And if you're not very, very careful, it will manifest itself from whatever's available, which includes your own flesh. So, if you think insect, you'll start transforming into an insect permanently. That sort of thing. A mimic toilet. Ooh. Youch. Hey, Jonathan. My DM won't let me go above CR1 for the spliced creatures. We're trying to keep it balanced for the other players. Oh, right. Yeah. Well, you've still got, like, half, quarter, and 1/3 CR to play around with. The question would be, because there's some stuff that you can stack onto a monster without altering the CR, which is kind of crazy. Like, you can give them magical abilities, for instance, spells and stuff without altering their CR. The question then is, how many traits can those creatures have? Like, what you do is you trade their size for special abilities. That's what they did in Palladium, for instance, with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle role-playing game, and it worked really well. So for each size category, you start off with a size category, say large. So your base monster is an elephant or a mammoth or something like that. Then you bust it down to like tiny rodent sized, and for each size category that it goes down, it's got a special ability, like the basilisk's ability to turn somebody to stone, flight, stuff that drastically changes its mobility or its effect on others. So that's something you could talk about with your demon and hash that out a little bit. It's a really good way of building monsters, by the way. Well, it's almost time for me to go, everyone. So I guess hey Sky, I guess in the upcoming podcast where I'll be talking with like Jada and Ian on occasion, then we're just going to be talking about like our world building and running games and stuff like that. So people will essentially be able to step into our world and understand how we run games and how we think about campaigns, how we think about character progression, players' agency at the table, all that sort of stuff. Well, I'll be back next week, everybody. You were here the entire time, Scorch. It's a record. Hey, Jam the Use. Yeah, so the Far Realm is not just like dimensions being packed in together and shifting between them. You can actually go to a relatively stable bit of the Far Realm where you can see the sort of distortions off in the distance, like there's not a starry sky sort of thing. It's just weird distortions, and you've got these big geometric shapes floating around that are like living nightmares instead of planets and stuff. But there's large sections of the Far Realm. So, for instance, you can go inside a creature, which is a demiplane. Excuse me. I'm one of those people that sneezes twice. So yeah, the demiplane, which is a living entity, which is where you get Growl and Grix and stuff like that. Because when you think about it, they're actually supersized. They're a macro-sized bacteria that live inside other creatures. Anyway, bye everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for all the super chats, and for anybody who's bought a T-shirt that I during the live stream, thank you very much. I hugely appreciate it. Special shout out to Carl Huber, who is a commissioned artist. You can check him out on Twitter if you need any logos for your groups or your homebrew. That includes homebrewed labels for your drinks. He does some really great vector art and stuff like that, and he's always looking for commissions. So if you have any projects for him, including one which is coming up soon, which is the initiative tracker, which is in the works off camera here. I'm looking at the prototype layout for it. More on that soon. It's an exciting invention in the world of Dungeons and Dragons paraphernalia that's actually applicable to any sort of game, and it will blow your mind. For those of you who know what I'm talking about. And I'll catch you all later.